Welcome to the uh one of the last episodes of Counselor U. We are so excited to be here. We are produced by the Eastern New Mexico University Counseling Department, and we're sponsored by the New Mexico Expanding Opportunities Project. And we're super excited to be here. We have I'm Nikki McDowell Horn, and Taylor Call, and then we have Katrina Weir, and we are here to talk today about resilience. Um, what kind of, when you think of resilience, what do you think of? How about, let's start with that.
I'll go first. Um, so resilience to me is being able to get through tough situations without having a complete meltdown, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all those things that come with being human. Um, but also not only internally but externally to those around us. That's just my kind of definition.
Excellent.
When I think of resilience, I think a little bit opposite of Taylor because I think perseverance with resilience, but I also think with resilience do comes obstacles, and in order to be resilient in those obstacles, it helps you resilience keep you going through those obstacles. And so many times, sometimes resilience may seem as you are strong, you have to be strong, but also it can be getting through what you thought you couldn't get through because of the obstacles as well. So I would say resilience, or my definition, as Taylor would say, my definition I think is resilience is going through it, making it through, but working through it even with the obstacles, even when it's hard, even when the situation looks tough, even when you want to give up, even when you're making crying, ugly faces, even when your makeup is all over the place, but still able to fight to get to reach that goal or to reach what you want to accomplish.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. So, um, yeah, resilience is I think both of those things. I think it's a lot of, you know, it's necessary. It's a necessary part of growth. And so what we want in any program, but especially here at Eastern New Mexico University, um is to transcend our past self, to when we make mistakes, it's not about being perfect students. It's not about straight A's and then never making a mistake. It's about you make those mistakes, you know, and then you learn from them, grow from them, and change. And by being able to handle that, you become resilient rather than dropping out, giving up. Um, so the first step in all of this is acknowledging what could have gone better in your journey in the program, and I'll start. I really want to I want to say that I've made a lot of, pretty serious mistakes. Um, just kind of not more in the beginning, not recently, but I just couldn't make it, you know. Um I had uh I had anemia, so some of it wasn't really my fault, but I just gave up on the program, and I stopped going to classes, and just, stopped doing everything, stopped. I didn't read anymore. I didn't do any homework, and they just had to, they failed me. and I went to the doctor and then found out that's what's going on. That's why I'm sleeping 90% of the day, and um but I didn't get any help before then. So I consider it a mistake. I should have gotten some help before that got that bad. And I accept that I made that mistake. I acknowledge that that could have gone better. And that, a more recent mistake I made was I didn't have a planner um keeping me in track of what was going on in my classes, and I skipped an important assignment in one of my classes, and it just messed up my whole grade.
Mhm.
It's a silly mistake, right?
Mhm.
And it ended up costing me, and I barely passed, because in grad school B is the lowest of passing. You can't
Mhm.
get a C and pass. So, I got a B in that class, and I should have been making straight A's, and it's just a silly mistake. And anyway, but I acknowledge it. So what kind of some mistakes or a mistake you guys would like to share? I'd really like to hear.
I like how you said, the fact that you're owning that mistake. I think taking responsibility and noticing when we do make mistakes and owning up to it is, like you said, step one. Now you can move on from it and you can learn from it. One thing I like to do just personally is once I've owned that mistake, what's next? So what have I learned from it? What am I going to do differently the next time? Those types of things. And so I'll kind of piggyback off of what you said, but I had a similar situation. This was recently, like within the last month. I got my dates mixed up on an assignment that was due during spring break, but my spring break from my teaching career was a week after. And so I was thinking, oh, I have a week, I can do it during spring break. Well, it was due the week before. And so I noticed that, and it was already a day past due. And so um, graciously, my professor, I reached out and she walked me through the process and basically gave me some grace and said, I'll grade it accordingly. You'll just have a late, you know, certain amount of points off. So I think, once that's communicated and you're able to talk about making that mistake and kind of out yourself in that, I think for me, it made me feel better just knowing that, you know, I I owned it and was able to say what I was, the confusion that I had, even though there's no excuse. I mean, I had the calendars and I just, brain brain fart moment type deal. And so anyway, I think that within this journey, you're going to make those mistakes and it's okay. But what are you going to learn from it? What are you going to do differently the next time? So,
Well, I like all of them. I think for me, I think we mentioned it earlier before we start recording, where we say, talking about trying to be perfect, right? And so many times, sometimes, we try so hard to be perfect. And as you guys talk about, for me, I think it was a little one. It was like my a discussion post, but it worth like a good set of points. But you had to respond to a classmate. But I thought you could respond like anytime to a classmate. I didn't know that you had to respond then to the classmate as well. And I did the post late, and then I did the responding late, and I got some marks taken off. I mean, some good marks. And when I look at it, I was like, oh, my husband was like, he was like, you don't need to be such a professor. I was like, no, not for a discussion. I'm gonna get all these marks taken off. No way. But then, as you guys said, I just, I learned from it. So I make sure I check the syllabus. I make sure I check to see the dates when things are due. Even if I do it the day before, which I recognize too, that I work better under a little bit of pressure. Sometimes when I got all of this time and I could just relax and then I could turn it in, sometimes my best work comes with a little bit of pressure.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when you do have those due dates ahead, now I am not saying procrastinate. I think there's a difference between laziness, procrastinating, or just, having that moment, or having that to be like, you know what? I have time today. Let me sit, let me do my work. And so going back, I think when you acknowledge what you did, so when I recognize with that discussion, oh, this professor, she's not even playing with a discussion. That means do not even miss a big assignment. That's what I got from it. If a small discussion, she's this tough, well, do not miss any of the major assignments, right? And so I acknowledged that early on in the semester when I recognized that from her. I was like, okay, you got to be on time for all your other assignments. Even if you turn it in the day of, like you cannot miss that day. So I think acknowledging it and help and let mistakes make you better. Don't let mistakes discourage you to not keep persevering or having the resilience to keep going, right? You make a mistake, right? Hopefully you learn from it, but stop beating up yourself when you do make a mistake, because mistakes do help us grow, help us to learn what to do, what not to do, and how to navigate through life, and how to navigate through school, how to navigate through different professors as well. And so I think acknowledging that, as Nikki and Taylor said, I think acknowledging that is the key to being able to continue to resilience. Like, I got through it, I did it, let's move on. I got this.
Excellent.
Katrina, I like how you said that you sometimes like to wait until the last day. So I just like picture this like lump of coal like the day
Yeah.
before, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's due the next day, and you just shell out some beautiful diamonds.
I,
And
I'm telling you,
it's that pressure. You just need the
that
pressure.
pressure got doing some beautiful work,
That's
Taylor.
right. Crushing it.
Pressure it.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, in hand with that, it's really important, because when we do make mistakes, we'll be kind of down on ourselves, and really kind of focusing on the negative. I did this wrong, and you know what, and I did that wrong before,
Yes.
and then I did this other thing. I really am just a terrible person, and I should just quit. That's a bad line of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right, but it's easy to go down that road though,
So, yeah.
yeah.
especially
So,
when you're in a graduate school situation, because it's like you're feeling the pressure of, getting good grades and things like that, but you also have to celebrate your achievements too.
yeah. And that's exactly what I was going to say. Yes, the next is that um the next step is to make sure that we don't fall down that line of thinking and start recognizing what we did achieve, recognizing our strengths, and how we can use those strengths to help correct our mistakes in the future, so that we don't make those mistakes. So for me, I recognize that I bounced back. I did that first counseling program failure when I um failed those classes. It actually takes work to reapply and get back in, connect with, you have to communicate with people and give them, information showing that you know especially if you're leaning on financial aid, give them information showing that you've taken care of the problem, that you will not fail again. It's not going to be a gamble on you, you know and that took a certain amount of personal confidence, because I could have easily thought, well, I don't know that I won't fail again. But I mean, looking back, I'm glad that I did the work. I'm glad that I tried. I'm glad that I put a little extra faith in myself that I can bounce back because I did. I'm graduating next month. So I'm making it. And I I am proud of myself. If I make another mistake tomorrow, I'll remember that, hey, I bounced back from a pretty serious one, you know? What about you guys? What kind of achievements help keep you going?
Well, I think for me personally, as a little girl with at first being raised by a single mom and seeing the sacrifice that my mom made at such a young having me at a young age, and my stepdad, who is my dad, no. But when I really look back at my life to get to graduate school again, right? I look at my life. I was not in primary school, which is a Caribbean, which we call it back back home. I was not that A and B student at all. I had to work a lot harder, or 10 times a lot harder than other students. Um, so I struggle within school, even in high school as well. And I think I mentioned this already in one of our podcasts, I think last semester, but there was something that a teacher said to my mom, to my godmom, to tell my mom that she was like, Katrina is not like the other kids. And at that time, I was going to a very prestigious high school, from the high school that I went to attend at first. And to be honest, guys, those words like always stayed with me, right? Like those words, like, like never left me, like never. Like I will always, and I'm so thankful that God used those words, even as harsh as it was, and my feelings was hurt, and I didn't understand it. Um, I had to work hard to get a track and field scholarship. I had to work hard to graduate with associates. And then I went on to be the first in my family to receive a bachelor's. And then after that to be the first to receive a master's degree. And then during my second master's degree, right? I look back at my life and be like, man, those words that those teacher that teacher said to me for all of those years, God, like how God used those words to just be my motivation, as some type of motivation to keep going. So when I did get into graduate school, or when I got into my I was so focused, you know, to I think I was overly focused first of all because I was trying to be perfect, trying to make grades and trying to, accomplish all of these things. But at the same time, when, as you said, right, Nikki, when I could look back at my life, I just remember those words the teacher said. She's not smart enough. She's not good enough. She's not
Mhm.
like the other kids. You know, I look back at it and like, man, God, thank you for using that to help me to push myself. Because there's so many times I could have given up. There were so many times. I remember when I first came to the United States and I cried so much. I'd be like, Mom, I just want to come home. Like it's too hard. I can't handle it. I can't take it. You know. But the resilience and the perseverance to just it was bigger than me. And I always tell people that for when I share that story, like for me, I grew up seeing what poverty was. I grew up seeing what struggle was. So for me, it was like, and then what the teacher said. So all of these things was the back of my mind. Like, I'm not gonna be like this. I'm not gonna be like this. I
Yeah,
am not gonna be like this.
it sounds like it was an incredible motivator for you.
Yeah, and it was so remarkable to see how God used each and every moment of my life, at each and every season of those times where I did wanted to give up and didn't. Because I will tell you, we all will have moments in life, whether in grad school, after grad school, in our workplace, in a work job, in our families, whatever it may be, we all gonna have a moment where we do want to give up. And Taylor said it earlier. it's so much easier to give up. It's so much easier not to have resilience. It's so much easier to not persevere. But I believe that when, I believe one, when you put God first, two, when you continue to have, like Nikki said, you have that self confidence in yourself to be able to be, I'm gonna bounce back from this. Like when life happens and things happen in life and in grad school, as Taylor said, it's hard. Being a grad student is hard. And then on top, you got a life. You got a family. You got to cook. You got to clean. You got other life things to do, right? But when it is so much bigger than you, when it's so much bigger than what you want to accomplish, and my husband and I, we were talking about it today, it's not about money. Sometimes, yeah, you could go to work and you could just go to work and you could just do it because why? Because you get a good pay, right? But people that exceptional leaders and exceptional people that do a good job do it for more than the money. Do it because they want to see a change. Do it because they want to change someone else's life, right? And that's, as counselors, I think that I hope that people that join the program or continuing the program or in the program will just remember that your advice, what you go through in your life, is going to speak to your clients as well. So if we didn't learn resilience, if we didn't learn to keep persevering through those hard, difficult times, how can we go to someone and ask them or tell them, hey, you can do it, when we didn't believe that we can do it?
That's beautiful. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Should we stop now?
Yeah, that was a beautiful message, and now we'll end. Yeah.
Um, so my motivation in my own resilience in my undergrad, I skimped by. Um,
Yeah.
and in the middle of my sophomore year of college, I lost my mom. And so I had a lot of internal struggles going on with that, and then some external things happening that I wish didn't. But they were my own choices and my own doing. And so I too was in a probationary type situation with the university that I attended, and um, I only had like, I don't even know, like 30 hours left. I was about halfway through my degree at that point, and so I just kind of felt like the last year and a half or so, I just kind of, did bare minimum to get through it. And so my my journey getting here to grad school, I've had a full-time job now, and I've been working as a teacher for 9 years. And so when I finally decided to make the choice and come back to school, grad school for me was a kind of a jumping off point from a previous point of a very low place. And so, graduating with, a 2.0 in undergraduate, my goal for graduate school is to have straight A's. And up until this point, where I'm at 36 hours, I've done that. I've accomplished that. And, we talk about the possibility of, you know, um, getting a B, and I think that it might happen at some point. I'm hoping it doesn't, but it's that thought of, the perfectionism within me, knowing where I've been and where I'm going. I can accept the fact that, if I get a B, it's going to be okay. Am I learning in the class? Am I applying the things that I'm learning, and moving forward? And so, I don't ever want to go back to that place of complacency or just getting by. And so I think that's kind of been my motivation throughout the grad school journey, is looking back at that and saying, I don't want to be in that place anymore. And so um, that's been what's kind of pushing me forward. So
You know, uh, that reminds me of my undergrad. I had a hard time then too, something, it was like a friendships and then falling out and then picking myself back up, and I was in that low grade point average range, and yeah, I identify with that too. And that's another thing. That's another point. Uh, I already made this mistake before where I almost failed out of school, or I did fail, and I've failed in other things in my life too. And we can't expect ourselves to make a mistake and then never make it again. We can't expect ourselves to be perfect, but to embrace the process, I think. Embracing the process of growth rather than um trying so hard to hang on to perfection. Um and so like I accept that I can't change what has happened in the past. And honestly, I wouldn't because I grew from it. I learned from it. And I accept myself as a flawed human being, but I accept that I also have potential. And I I think that we should maybe give some tips to anybody who's trying to get into this program and maybe feels like it's a bit daunting. I think I've told you guys this before, that I was in undergrad and nearing my undergrad completion and telling my peer, there's no way I'll even apply for grad school because it's just too much. It's just too much reading, it's too much work. There's no way I'd do it. Here I am about to graduate from grad school. So, like, the daunting part, um, what can we as people who are going through it right now, who have been through those doubts, those self-doubts, what can we suggest to those people? Um, you guys start. What do you think?
I'll let you go, Taylor.
Am I okay? No, I'm unmuted. Sorry, I was talking to myself there for a second. Um, I think just taking the first step, whether that be, well, let me go back. It took me about 3 years to finally decide to take the leap and start applying for grad school. Now there were a lot of fears behind that. There was a lot of self-doubt, you know, from my previous undergraduate, studies. And so I think you just got to get to a point in your own personal, I guess, confidence to where you can just take the leap and just go for it. And so I, in being at a place in my life where I felt confident enough to, get to a graduate school. And then, I think I applied to like 6 or 7 when I first started applying. Heard back from a few, and then finally, landed on this for a variety of reasons. But I think that, if you're to that point in your life and you're ready, um, I say go for it. Don't let the little things hold you back. Some little things that were holding me back were, the what ifs. What if I'm, quote, not good enough? What if I make mistakes, big mistakes or small mistakes? Those types of things. And so I think, just getting to the point where you can finally take the leap and go for it. And then once you're in it, it's like, oh, this isn't all that bad. It's hard work. Don't get me wrong. This isn't some, we're not going to Chuck E. Cheese and playing for tickets, but, um, it takes work. It takes time. Um, and so some of those fears that might be holding you back, I just say go for it and get in it and try, and if it's not for you and you get to a point where you're like, hey, I don't think grad school's for me, then you have the option of, going and doing something different. And so, um, just getting to that point of just going for it.
Excellent. You know, that reminds me of I I was first started out um pursuing a theater degree undergrad. Then I went to communication and I graduated with a bachelor's of communication. Didn't like the job options even though I knew what the job options were before I graduated, and started looking around for other stuff and found speech language pathology, and I did that for a year and a half and realized I couldn't do that. That wasn't really for me. And then I switched to counseling and that was my calling. So, yeah, if it isn't for you, that's okay. Part of that may be part of the journey. What about you, Katrina?
Yeah, I think it's wonderful because for me it was a I think the biggest question is the why. Why do you want to go to graduate school? Right? My husband, he's finishing up his PhD now, and that was something that we were discussing. He's like, "Oh, you should go and get your PhD." Well, for me personally, in that moment, in that season, I was working, I had just finished working at my dream job. My dream job was always, I want a part of my dream job was to coach collegiately, track and field. Obviously, it's to move up the skill, but to coach at Division 2, my dream was to move on to Division 1 and be a head coach someday. Well, it starts to change for me career wise. Um, and so when my husband we were discussing school, I was like, but what would I get a PhD in? Like, I feel like when you're going to do a PhD, you know what you know that you know that you know that you know what you want to do, right? And I didn't feel that I was in that place, whereas I know what I wanted to do, one. And two, I wasn't even dreaming on that type of level, right? To begin with. So let me put that out there too. But then it was the why for me going back because I did have my master's in communication. And like Nikki said, the communication jobs out there for me, if it wasn't coaching, I knew it wasn't going to be anything in communication. But then I started to develop a passion and a drive. And it was in my graduate school program. I had like a girls not like a student organization, and I started like help young girls, and we would meet every Thursday and we would talk, and that started kind of to be my motivation and my drive to just encourage people like, hey, like if I could do it, you could do it. It may not be the same journey, but if I can, you can. And so for me, going back to school, first of all, was the why do I want to pursue this, right? And then after the why, it made sense to me, right? Because I want to help people. Because I have such a great support system of wonderful women of God around me. How many young women or how many women do not have that? First of all, so for me, that became like my why and the fire that was lit under me because I was like, I want to help young and encourage women and encourage young women and even young guys, like to be encouraged that they can become someone, they can become something in life. They may not go to grad school, they may not go and pursue a PhD, they may not, that may not be what life have for them, but at least they go after it. So I guess my advice would be to anyone that is searching that because I felt, well, I was like, I thought I had it all together. I thought I had a good career. I was going to coach. I was going to do this, and life was good. But then I recognized that's not what I want to do, and it's okay. That took me a long time to accept. That took me
It,
such a long time to
you had
accept.
a greater calling.
Yeah, so for
Yeah.
me, that's what I'm learning, right? It took me a long time to accept that because I had a plan. God, I
Mhm.
had a plan. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm going after. And it took me, and I'm still learning, guys. I'm still learning how to adjust to not doing what I think I should be doing, right? So I say to any person that want to get into graduate school or getting into the counseling program, what is your why? First of all. And two, it is okay if you get into this program or you get into a program and you recognize, you know what? As you guys were saying, this is not for me. And you try something else, and you try something else, and you try something else, and you try something else until you find what you were meant to be doing. And so for me, I become to a point where I just didn't want to go to work because I could go to work. I didn't want to find a job because I could find a job. Like I wanted something that I know at the end of the day that I leave someone better than how I leave them. That I was able to impact or to say something to encourage someone. So that would be my biggest advice to someone. What is your why? Why do you want to do it? And don't do it for, and the next thing, don't do it for anyone else but you, right? Why do you want to do it? Being an only child, sometimes you got a lot of pressure, right? You want to please mom, you want to please everyone, and for me, I love people pleasing my circle, people I love, people I care about. I want to make sure that they're happy, and for many years, that was my why. My way was my mom. My way that one day I could retire my mom and make her proud, and when she talks highly about me, right? But now my why has shifted, right? My why has shifted because you know what? I want to make a difference in someone else's lives, right? So find your why and
And
be
go for
okay
it.
and go for it.
That's beautiful. You guys gave such good advice.
You better quit preaching, Katrina.
Yeah. No, you've
That was
got,
awesome.
yeah, you're really good at motivating. I think that's really great.
It's
And
that
Oh,
coaching background.
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it.
And like I love that of both of y'all's advice. I think in addition, maybe, being careful, about shame, recognizing if you're feeling shame,
I agree.
you know, uh, if you do start to feel shame, um, start counting the things that you have achieved. Start counting the times that you have overcome.
That's good.
Because I know for me a lot of times shame will hold me down and keep me in just this depressive, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to try, I give up, kind of situation. I'm not I'm not 100% at keeping myself away from that shame, but I am slowly getting better, getting faster and more efficient at dispelling it. Using techniques, and helping myself pull myself out of there and start over. Little starts over, Anyway, I hope that this talk has been helpful to those of you out there who are looking to start a program in counseling and maybe looking at Eastern New Mexico University. Um, you know, we have been there and we're going through it too. And we believe in you, If you are the driver of your life, and if you feel that this is for you, we believe you can do it. You know?
Absolutely. We're imperfect beings. And so, like we said earlier, owning those mistakes and learning from them and moving on from them, not to say, like Nikki said earlier, that we'll never make that mistake again because we probably will. And that's okay too. So just keep your chin up and your head up and find your why, like Katrina said.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love all of that. Okay, well, that concludes our podcast for today. This has been Counselor U, brought to you by the Eastern New Mexico University Counseling Program and sponsored by the New Mexico Expanding Opportunities Project. just an excellent grant and an excellent counseling program. Please check us out. And we'll see you next time, okay? Bye.